You're the only one talking, so we're going to have a conversation about those and why it's important that we understand what it means to be a woman in STEM and positioning ourselves as a woman in STEM and advocating for ourselves as women in STEM, because that's going to set up what you guys are going to go through the rest of the course. And then we're going to talk about your first official reflective essay assignment in terms of what you want to get out of it, what you want to learn about your mentor, and start with that, okay? And that'll probably fill up most of our time today. Does that sound good? All right, so what were your initial thoughts about those articles about the women being a woman in STEM?
I think being a woman in STEM, there's a lot of stereotypes being into it. Like there's already, even not in STEM, there's already like a bias between women and men. And I just thought like it's, I never knew like how to approach stereotypes, like how to be like, hey, you're wrong. Like I'm kind of like shy, like, oh, like, you know, just back away, not say anything. But I think reading articles and knowing what stereotypes, you know, how to like fight back with evidence and data.
Right, exactly. What else?
It was nice to see the actual numbers on some things. Yeah, like, because I'd heard about all those issues that were discussed before, but I'd never actually seen the proof or the numbers behind it.
Okay, what surprised you the most about those numbers?
I was really surprised by the actual difference in pay between men and women. Those numbers really shocked me.
How did that make you feel?
A little uneasy, because like I obviously want to be paid the same as a male going into a STEM field. So it was like, well, what am I going to do about this to ensure that that doesn't happen to me?
Okay, good. How many of you guys knew going in when you declared your majors that there was this phenomena of women in STEM? You did?
I knew about the salary thing.
You knew about the salary thing?
I don't know that women in STEM who are being interviewed, like lower performing men would be hired over high performing women. That was very shocking to me.
Okay, and why do you think that is? Why do you think the articles don't get into it that much, and you guys will get into it later on, but why do you think it is? Why would a company come in and hire a male over a female, and a lower performing male over a female?
I think it's just stereotypical. Like up until, I guess recently, within the past few decades, it's only been male population in STEM fields, especially if it's like computer programming. It's never been seen as a like a girly thing to do. So I think maybe people just assume that men are better at the job.
Okay.
Fit in better.
All right.
I think a lot of people expect women to drop out like halfway through their career because they think that women want to be mothers or wives and stay at home more than men, and I think they expect men to complete their job longer.
Right, exactly. Okay, so we can talk about that right now, right? I'm expecting baby number 3. Okay, so I can tell you right now that, yeah, there is a lot of stereotype around women and families, etc. But I think you all know, and you'll experience a lot of this in higher education, that there are a lot of women in higher education, not even in STEM fields, who experience that same kind of stereotype as well. And there's a lot of women, especially in higher education, who choose not to have families. And that's okay. I mean, that's their prerogative, but because of the way that we stereotype people in society today, they become stereotyped, even if, you know, they don't fit, you know, what we would identify as a norm, even though it's not a norm. I mean, you can choose to have a family or not have a family. You can choose to be single, or you can choose to, you know, be married to the person you love, you know, type of thing. But we have these stereotypes, and it affects everything all the time. And when STEM, we not only have the woman in STEM thing, because it used to not be the girly thing to do, or girls couldn't do it, or girls think with, you know, the wrong side of their brain, and you can't be creative and be a STEM person. You know, it was an either or, and then you had the whole family issue on top of that. It's a really big deal to have to overcome that. And physicians, okay, did the article talk a little bit about being a physician in STEM? One of them did, I thought. What are the challenges there? Med school, female, choose to have a family. What do?
Well, a lot of people get married and quit med school.
They get married and they quit.
And they quit med
They get
school.
pregnant and they quit med school. Why do you think that is?
Well, med school's really time consuming.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have a job outside of med school because there's not time for it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't do anything else, and someone has to take care of the kid and, you know, do all that stuff. So they don't have time to do both, really.
So why doesn't the husband or the dad stay home?
They have to work too.
Do they?
Yes. I mean, if they're also in med school, then they also have a really time-consuming full-time job. And if they aren't in med school, then they do have to work and support a family somehow. So.
But what if you decided to marry the person that you loved, chose to have a child, and then you decide to go to med school? What's it going to be that to make you the decision to stay in med school versus the person that you chose to marry?
I mean, I would stay in med school personally, but
And then,
I would have family members or friends help out with me.
Okay.
But I don't know what other people would do. So.
yeah,
Make the man stay home with the child.
yeah, you can have that. My husband will be the first one to tell you that the second the chance he has to stay at home, he would in a heartbeat. But that's not the norm, right? What do we think about daddies who stay at home or mommies who stay at home?
Uneducated, you know, they're like uneducated and unmotivated.
Uneducated, unmotivated, it's an easy job. What else can we say? Lazy, yeah. You wear your yoga pants or sweatpants all day long, go work out during the day, have all this time, right? But if we do read the research and realize their stress level is at the same as a working person or even higher, because it's a full-time job. And as women, one of the things that we definitely have to get over is that stereotype of the woman has to do it all the time. And there's the good thing about you guys coming through right now is that a lot of this way has been paved. Our issues are not solved. I mean, I hope that you got at least that out of the articles. The information is out there. It is not solved at all. Okay, but at least we have more information and it's being publicized more than we ever have before. There's lots of books now on it. There's books about 50-50 parenting and 50-50 working, because even if you choose to have a dual career, with whoever you decide to spend the rest of your life with, whether it's your self or a spouse, even if you don't have a family, there's still stereotypes in terms of how you spend your time. There's still a stereotype that the female is the one who does all the housework at home, even if you don't have children at all. Okay, so we have to work really, really hard to get over the stereotypes. It's not exactly very fair, okay, but we don't live in a fair world, okay? So the word we strive for is equitable, okay? Equitable. We want equitable salaries. We want to get paid what we deserve to get paid, right? All right. Oh, you want me to move forward? Is that good?
Oh, brilliant.
Okay. Okay. So what else about the articles? Anything surprising?
Most of it is, I think that none of it was really that surprising because, we're already, at least I am, already really exposed to that. My mom's getting her PhD and, she just, talks about how she's always, the only woman So I mean, like, I wasn't really surprised by any of it, but.
And what's your mom getting her PhD in?
It's like a really long name. It's administration. She's a principal right now, and she wants to be an administrator. So that's what she's in, like, diversity among schools. So like, she really works a lot with like I work a lot on like the women's side of it, and she works a lot on like the what was the word? Diversity side.
Mm-hmm. Diversity and equity, broadening participation.
Yeah.
All those
like
things.
How like some like students of diversity get treated different than students of white who are white.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I suspect that you guys wouldn't have signed up for the course had you not already had these thoughts about being a woman in STEM, right? Or the initiative of that we're doing at UK about being a woman in STEM. But one thing that's important to remember is you guys already have these thoughts and you already know these things. There's a lot of other people who are STEM majors who don't even know. For example, I had no idea when I went into college that there was this whole woman in STEM thing. You know, like I knew math wasn't very popular for girls. I mean, there was like 4 people in my high school calculus class, or 4 girls in my high school calculus class. And we just thought, you know, well, I don't know. I guess I don't know what we really thought. We banded together. We had a lot of fun. We learned a lot. But even when I was looking for colleges to go to, I wasn't even thinking about, you know, what kind of support would I receive as a female in a STEM field or in the field of math. I knew from a very young age what I wanted to do. I was going to be either a neonatologist or I was going to be a math and science teacher. And by science, I mean biology, because again, I love physics, but you know, y'all do amazing work. And I know that math and physics are supposed to be highly related and are highly related. My biology just rung through to me. Like I love the life system. I love the body and all the, you know, all the life sciences part of it. Physics. I was really good in microbiology. I don't know why. I could never do microbiology because that's too much of an alone field, you know, but it was so much fun. But anyway, so I was either going to be a neonatologist or I was going to be a teacher, okay? Those are pretty drastically different things, right? And in the end, because at the time, there wasn't a lot of support for women physicians, etc. There seemed like a very tall order to become a doctor and then also have a family. Having a family was always very important to me. I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and if you read anything about birth order, family is very important to oldest children, okay? So that won out in the end, being a math teacher, math and biology. And so when I went to go search for colleges, and by the way, I made that decision in 4th grade. Who decides that in 4th grade? But you know, whatever. It's an oldest child thing. I searched for a program or searched for a college that would let me do math and biology. And so every program or college that I'd gone to wanted me to do math and physics. They didn't want me to double major in math and biology. And I finally found one that did. And then I ran cross country and track in college, so that kind of helped persuade that decision as well, because, you know, I'm from Kansas, okay, equally as poor of a state as Kentucky is, or even worse at times, and has a lot of stereotypes, like Kentucky has a lot of stereotypes. Being the girl from Kansas, if you want to make Dorothy jokes to me, I'll laugh, and then we'll move on. But anyways, I definitely had to have a scholarship to go. So that was really important. That's kind of the 2 deciding factors for me. But, you know, honestly, and I hope you guys never experience this, but I hope that this class can give you the tools to do it. I never really realized about being a woman in a math department or being a woman in STEM that there was that persona, or that I would be treated differently than my peers. And I actually only had, looking back, I had one professor in the math department who, well, there was two. The one, I probably could be a male-female thing. I was in Calculus 2, freshman year, and he would give me lower grades than other people in the class. And I confronted him about it because, again, I was pretty naive. I mean, I usually kind of speak my mind, good and bad. And so, you know, I was very quick to point out that that was not an equitable practice, and he always said that it would make me a better person in the end. That was his excuse. So fine, whatever. Probably looking back now, it probably was a bit of a male-female thing. He wasn't very, he didn't like talking to or being confronted by females or anything like that. But I did have one professor, and it was not until my master's degree. And it was at the same university I went to. I stayed and got my undergrad in math, and my graduate is a straight master's in math. And he told me my second semester of my master's degree that that it didn't matter how I did in his class, that I was a female and I wasn't going to be good in math, and I didn't really need to be there anyways. So luckily, I was definitely stunned by that. Huh? Oh, yes. Oh, verbally. Oh, yes.
Did you say to other women, or were you the only woman?
I was the only girl in the class. Yeah.
Out loud, like in front of everyone? Or like,
No, I had gone to his office hours because I needed some help with the class. So, yeah. Only C I ever got in a math class in my entire life. I took it. I was like, you know what? And then for my master's exam, I actually got a 96% on his portion of the exam, so that was kind of my little to him, you know, like, all right, you gave me a C in your class, because I felt like I earned higher than that, but you know, whatever. At that point, sometimes it's a choose your battle game. So all that to say, I did not really experience, you know, any kind of, you know, I couldn't do something because I wasn't of the right gender or the right sex because of that until then. And I feel pretty lucky, because I feel like if I would have, if someone would have said something to me earlier, you know, I don't know if that would have swayed my decision or not, you know. And so I think like this class and the tools that we'll try to give you in this class are really important, but we also want you to go out and be advocates as well for all the other women in STEM, especially your peers who might not know about some of this, or might need a little bit of help finding their voice. Because having women in STEM is really, really important. You know, there's a lot of research out there about women and how we work and how our brains function. We think differently than men, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing, okay? Don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. The thinking differently is great, because in this society today, we do so much teamwork stuff. I can imagine being partnered with a male and it being on equitable ground and bouncing ideas back and forth. I mean, you could have a completely creative, harebrained idea, right? Because that's how we get things done. And then you can be partnered with a male or even another female. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have, you know, mixed genders, and having that perspective too, and working together, which is what we would think would normally happen, but it doesn't always. So it's okay to think differently. It's okay to approach things differently, but we have to make it okay or make people realize the rest of the time. Okay, so I want to ask you guys, and you said you already knew about women in STEM. Have you guys been told, or what are some of your stories about thus far being a woman in STEM or wanting to pursue a STEM career? Have you ever been told you couldn't do it, or what were some of those factors that made you decide, yes, I could be a woman in STEM?
I think when I first heard of like kind of a bias is, I forgot, I'm not sure if it was high school or middle school, but I remember the teacher saying, like, at a science class at a very young age in science classes, like elementary schools, like teachers pick on men to answer questions more than females, and it starts at a very young age that, you know, girls are like, oh, like maybe this is not my subject, you know, but that's when I first kind of realized it, when she said that, and now it's kind of like built up, especially because I think she mentioned in the first first class session that when she looked around, like she was the only female in her class, and I thought, I was like, in my class, like, am I the only female? I'm like, hey, like, there's not a lot of females. Like, it kind of, like, clicked.
And I had kind of, like, an opposite experience, like, growing up. My mom, well, she was a teacher, no, she's okay. She was a teacher at, like, my, like, grade school, but, like, she wasn't my teacher at the time. But, like, I always had that mentality of, like, I'm the teacher's pet. So, like, I would always answer all the questions, and I was always, like, built up a lot. Like, my mom was actually a science teacher at my school, so, like, I was always, like, built up a lot and being like, you can do whatever you want to do. And, like, I've actually not had, like, like, my Calc 1 and 2 teacher in high school was a female. My AP Bio teacher was a female. My AP Chem teacher was a female. And, like, there was always just, like, a lot of, like, you can do whatever you want. And the only time that I've ever felt, like, a bias was I'm in Calc 2 now, and there's, like, 4 girls to every 30 guys.
Yeah.
And, like, sometimes in my, like, recitation, they're just, like, you know, rude, but it's fine. It's nothing I can't deal with. Like,
The boys are rude to you?
There's one kid, and, like, I'm pretty sure the entire class hates him, but, like, I just especially hate him. He, like one day, like, we were just, like, going through something really difficult, and, like, I was trying to work out a problem, and he, like, literally was like, oh, look, she's finally doing something. And I was like, oh, look, I'm going to punch you in the face. Like, but all the other guys in the class were like, dude, no one likes you. Like, stop talking. So I think it's, like, for me at least, I think it's becoming a thing of, like I think that we're becoming more progressive.
Okay.
And I think that's due to all the women who've blazed the paths before us, thankfully.
Yeah.
And are still blazing.
Yeah, still
Because
blazing.
you guys are still blazing. What else?
Well, I'm from a really small southern Kentucky town.
Uh-huh.
So, like, I didn't really experience any noticeable bias there. I mean, I'm sure it probably happened and I just wasn't aware of it. But I wasn't really aware of the women in STEM issue until I got to college. And then still, like, I'm not sure the exact moment it hit me or I realized it, but I definitely am aware of it now.
So one thing that we notice, and we've done some research on in women in STEM, and you guys have kind of alluded to this, is like this empowerment. You guys have already decided, you know, that you want to be a STEM major, and there's a sense of empowerment within you that, you know, you have blinders on for good, you know, whether or not you know it or not, or I can claim I was naive. I mean, I'm from Kansas, you know, we're naive about a lot of things, okay? But, you know, there's a sense of empowerment of, I'm gonna do this, and by golly, no one's gonna get in my way, right? I mean, choosing to be a STEM major is difficult enough, okay? And so a lot of times females who choose to be STEM majors are focusing on the difficulty of the major, not the fact that they're a woman in STEM on top of it being a difficult major. I mean, just thinking about, oh yeah, maybe I am one of 2 females in the class. You know, those things don't occur to us because we're focused on that end goal of being the surgeon or being the astrophysicist, etc. So we're pretty driven. What about those who are up and coming? Because we need more females in STEM, so how can we persuade more females that maybe not be like you all are, that maybe be more teetering on the edge of, I don't know if I want to do STEM or not. How do you think that we can talk to them and build up that empowerment in them?
I mean, I know as a kid, my favorite thing was always like the high schoolers and the college students coming to like talk to us and being like, oh my God, look, they're real people. They actually made it through 7th grade. Maybe I can make it through 7th grade. Like, I think that like going and talking to local schools or like going back to our high schools at home and being like, you can do it. It is manageable. You will not be alone. Like, I think that is something that.
I agree with that. I went to my 8th grade class a couple weeks before my graduation from senior year. And the kids were so like mesmerized by, I went with one of my friends who's a business major here. And they were so mesmerized by us, and they were asking us questions and, you know, what science classes were like in high school, because they knew that I was a science major. And they were really cute, but they had so many questions. And I think when you get those questions answered by somebody who is in the process of that happening, it gives you a lot more insight to someone who's already gone through the process. So
Yeah.
Yeah, my physics teacher in high school was a female too. I went to an all-girls school, but the faculty was like mixed, like gender, I think. But like there was a good majority of women who were teaching. And I had a physics teacher, and she'd always say like, "Hey, be an engineer, be a physicist, because we need more women in that field." We're kind of like, and just she was doing so well with her life and everything. She had like 2 kids. She had an amazing job. And I'm like, well, geez, I want to do that.
Yeah, I think it's really important to just tell people that it is doable and show them that we've managed to do it. Success stories are important. There were a lot of people at my high school, men and women both, that didn't even attempt to go to college. Like they just, I don't know why, like maybe they just immediately counted themselves out, like, oh, I can't do this for various reasons. But I think it's just really important to go back and be like, yeah, you can do it. Here are ways you can do it. It's very doable.
So when you guys think about, and maybe this is just a question for thought, okay? You don't have to answer it now. But as you go through the course, and especially as you go through your undergraduate career, is you've chosen a field of STEM. And most of you have identified very early on, by the way. That's why I was really interested about the pre-med majors, if you've already thought about what you want to do, right? And even physics, saying physics generically, that's another field. Like, do you even know what you want to do? That's highly unusual that you all have already identified. And you may change, and that's okay. But again, you're very driven. But I want you to think about, you chose STEM, you're a female in STEM, and does this course, or does going through an undergraduate program in STEM change how you feel about declaring that STEM major, change your identity about declaring that STEM major? Do you identify more with now the I am a woman in STEM, you know, hear me roar type of thing? Or is it just purely still, you know, I'm going to be a neuroscience surgeon, or I'm going to be, you know, a pediatrician or a neonatologist or an astrophysics, but then on the side I'm also a woman in STEM? Like, think about that throughout this course of this semester, and think about how that might or might not change throughout the course of your career. Because I think that's something that's really important to think about and identify and come to grips with. And I think you guys all have what you've talked about, your common reason for being here and being a STEM major is you've had some kind of mentoring. And mentoring is very, very powerful. Going back to our schools and teaching, or having students experience having positive female role models in our lives who showed that it could be done. And so that's what I think is going to be really neat about this program, is we have this class that's going to help you communicate and help, you know, identify, and hopefully you won't have any barriers. Hopefully, that's the dream. But if you do, give you tools for communicating and getting over those, but then also pairing you with a mentor, you know, someone who has been successful. And remember, we define success in a lot of different ways. You know, you saw one side of your teacher, that she has it all, is what you said. But maybe in the evening, she doesn't feel like she has it all. She feels like her life is, you know, crazy and burning down, and she doesn't know how she's going to, you know, make it. But being that during the day, that's an important thing, right? And then encourage, get out something to write with, because I want to make sure that we have our reflective essay assignment talked about, and then we'll wrap up with some stuff. So you've had the introduction of the course and what its purpose is, and you've read the media articles regarding women in STEM, and you have some stats now, and you're kind of identifying your own story. And what I'd like for you to do is I want you to talk to your mentor about some of these same things, okay? And so, but I want us to have a couple of questions that we all ask our mentors about and center the reflection on that. Does that work for you all? How many people have already been in contact with their mentor? 3 of you? And what about you two? You said you're having trouble?
I'm just so busy. I'm taking 19 credits, plus I have like 3 mandatory study groups a week, and I'm in a sorority, and everything. Like I've had 3 exams this week. Like,
Has your mentor reached out to you?
yeah, but we just like haven't
Connected yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Yours is trying to get.
We've talked, but we haven't met in person yet.
Okay. But you're trying. There is communication there already.
We're trying to find a date to
Okay.
everybody
All right.
together.
All right. So correct me if I'm wrong. Everything's kind of flexible in terms of turning things in this class.
And it's Ellen. I think
Yeah.
Ellen is all over.
She's,
It is.
as long as you're making an attempt.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you can do, if you've had a face-to-face, I'm okay if you want to email back and forth about these, but or get on the phone about it. But it'd be nice to have a conversation face-to-face about it. All right? What do you think is important to know about your mentor, or what do you want your mentor to know about you? Let's ask that question first. To help us start with our list of questions. What do you guys think?
My mentor, I actually contacted her about, because she's in the College of Medicine, I actually contacted her to like shadow someone in, the College of Medicine or anything, like to get my foot in. And I think that was I love the idea of having a mentor, that is like, she can help you with like connections and like anything. Really.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so the connections. Is there anything in particular you want to know about your mentor?
I kind of want to know if like she has had any experiences like you've had with kind of bad stereotypes.
Okay, so how should we phrase that? What barriers have you experienced as a woman in STEM? How does that sound? Okay. I think that's a good one. And I think that everybody's going to have different barriers. I actually haven't even shared the story that to me defines like who I've become or why I'm so interested about women in STEM even more now, is that when I went into my PhD program, I was actually sexually harassed by a professor in my degree program, my very first semester, and I almost quit. And I think, I don't know why, looking back, I reported it, and there was a case, and I won. Won, I say in quotes, I'll tell you why in a minute. I don't know what drove me to report it, other than everything always, there was only a few things that happened behind a closed door. Everything else happened in an open environment that other people saw, and they're like, hey, that's not right. That's not right. So an example is the professor told me that the only reason why I had made it as far as I did was because I had a cute butt, or that I looked good, and that's why I was admitted into my master's in math. Okay, like I was admitted to the master's in math because I had the grades and I worked very hard and I qualified for the master's in math, right? But anyways, that always those comments happened in front of other people. So I feel kind of lucky in the fact that it did, because I don't know if I would have had the courage to report and do something about it had it all happened behind closed doors, type of thing. So, and I say that I won in quotes because he was found guilty of sexual harassment. He got to keep his job, which to this day I don't know how and why. He had to go through anger management training and sexual harassment training. And the only other major punishment that he had was that he was currently going up for tenure and promotion under fast track, which meant he could go up early, and they made him pull his materials and wait 2 years before he went up again. So that was his punishment. And meanwhile, I didn't connect me with any kind of counseling services. It was just kind of like, here's what happened. They offered me a place to go, an office away, and I had a very, very strong department chair who persuaded me to stay because I was going to leave. I was going to give up a year and a half or a semester and a half worth of coursework and leave and go somewhere else. So, but I stayed. I did it. I made it through. I still have to see him at conferences. I smile because I'm a bigger person. But anyways, everybody has a story. Sometimes there are good stories, sometimes there are other stories, but the stories define them. And I think it is really important if you can talk to your mentor about those stories, because that will help you better understand and help you feel more empowered in the end. Okay, so what barriers have you experienced? What else do you want to know about your mentor?
How the heck they got to where they are.
Okay, right. So I think that's a good thing. So I would ask them to identify, let's say, can you identify 2 or 3 things that you feel were key points for you getting to where you are today? How does that sound? It could have been a mentor. It could have been a program that was available to them. It could have been a job that they started out in that maybe encouraged them. It could be other external motivating factors or internal motivating factors. There are some people, I think many of you have already identified that are extremely driven, and by golly, nothing's going to get in the way of that. So there's a lot of different factors. Okay, what's another thing? Let's do 3. What else do you want to know about your mentor that you think might be helpful to you?
It's like when and how did they decide they wanted to go into a STEM major?
Okay, when and how they knew that they wanted to be a STEM major. I think that's a really important question, thinking it, especially as you think about being advocates in the future for women in STEM, you know, what they think, and then adding your perspective. I think your all's perspective is especially important right now because, I mean, you're in the throes of it. You just graduated from high school and are getting into it. Okay. How are we on time? Ooh, right on time. What questions do you have for me?
Is it difficult to manage your job and your family as we talked about that stereotype?
I say yes and no. Yes, it is. I think it is. I think that anybody who would tell you no or that it is easy would be lying. That people always talk about work-life balance. I actually think that that's not a very accurate or great term to use, because I think that balance, and this is me being a math person, to me a balance is, it's balanced. And in reality, it's never balanced at all. I mean, what I've learned, I've been at UK for 10 years in this position, and pre and post children, pre met my husband, post met my husband. And I can tell you that the scale changes. I think you can think about it as a scale, but I don't think it's ever balanced. I think it's, one or the other. Sometimes your work needs more attention, and sometimes your personal life needs more attention. Whether or not it's taking care of a family, taking care of a family member, taking care of yourself, a house, whatever is going on in your personal life versus your work life. And the one thing that has been most helpful to me, and I've had to have a lot of outside help in terms of people telling me, is that it is okay to let things go. Right? I am a person who I strive not to be a perfectionist. It's very hard. Strive very hard not to be a perfectionist. That finished is better than perfect. Okay, so as long as I get something finished, but that it's okay to let things go within reason. I mean, like I said, sometimes work needs more attention, and sometimes your home life needs more attention. Sometimes you're under a deadline for an article or a paper or a grant or something that, it has to happen. But that's when you get that outside help. Whoever you've identified as your outside help, whether it's, a study buddy or a support person or something, you're like, okay, I have to make this happen. How can we make this happen? Like I'll talk to my husband, this is what I have to do. This has to happen. We have to make it happen. How can we do that? And then readjusting. And so sometimes we have to bring in outside help. I have to hire a sitter for the kids at night, which kills me because then, I don't get my time with them. But, sometimes that has to happen. Whereas, this past weekend, my workload right now is extremely long. But gosh, it was a beautiful weekend, like seriously. And then you saw that the snow was coming, so you definitely had to be outside. So, we spent a majority of the weekend being outside, playing with the kids, going to the park, etc. I did not answer email. I had some nasty emails on Monday, but that's okay. So just thinking about it in terms of recognizing, yeah, it's hard, but it's okay. It's okay that if something is hard. It's not always going to be easy. So, huh? Yeah, exactly. Or like that, my real analysis class that I got the C in. It was, okay, this is going to be hard, and maybe this is something that I just need to get through, and etc. Yeah. Any other questions? Nothing? Well, you guys are too easy of a group then. Okay, so remember the reflective essay assignment. I want you to ask your mentor those 3 questions. And the essay, it doesn't have to be long, okay? Excuse me, a couple paragraphs is completely fine. Submit it on Canvas. And if you have questions, just email either one of us, and we'll help you with that, etc. Okay? All right. Thank you. Have a great 2 o'clock class, if you have one. If not...